All right, let's jump right in. Today we're going to explore a pretty radical idea. What if you could understand the entire history of human progress, of science itself, through the simple act of digging? It's a wild concept, so let's get into it.
No, seriously, take a moment and really let that sink in. What if every single scientific discovery, every philosophical breakthrough, every time we pushed against the boundaries of what we know, what if all of it could be seen as one single, continuous, symbolic act? That's the core idea we're unpacking today.
So, to get our heads around this, the source material breaks this cosmic drama down into three key players. First, you've got the diggers, who represent some kind of persistent, relentless force. Then there's the barrier. That's the obstacle they're constantly trying to get through. And finally, hovering over everything is an unseen law, a sort of final will that governs the whole system.
Okay, so before we can build up this grand theory, we have to start with the most basic piece of the puzzle, the action itself. What does it actually mean to dig in this context?
Well, if you strip it all down, digging is a repetitive activity, right? It's always aimed at breaking through something. Its effects build on each other, they're cumulative, but, and this is key, it also stops and starts periodically, and the final result, the big breakthrough, is always delayed. Remember those qualities. They're the key to everything.
Okay, so let's start with the most obvious way to look at this story, our first framework, the literal one. The diggers are actually digging. The barrier is made of real rock and metal, and the goal is just to punch a physical hole through it. Seems simple enough.
But here's where that simplicity starts to fall apart. Sure, the literal view explains the words on the page, but it has no good answer for the weirder parts of the story. Why would the work just periodically stop and reset? And what's going on with that sudden massive transformation at the very end? The literal framework just leaves us with some major plot holes.
So that forces us to level up our thinking. Let's move to interpretation number 2, the civilizational framework. What if we're not talking about physical digging at all? What if it's all a powerful metaphor for the long, relentless march of human civilization, our endless quest for knowledge?
In this view, the barrier is the limit of our understanding at any given moment. And the digging? Well, that's the scientific method, it's philosophy, it's the slow, cumulative process of research and discovery. Each generation adds their small contribution, chipping away at the unknown, trying to break through to a whole new level of understanding. And you know what? This symbolic view actually explains that weird stop and start thing perfectly. I mean, think about human history. You have golden ages of incredible progress, followed by dark ages, where knowledge is lost, entire fields of study collapse, and future generations basically have to start digging all over again.
All right, now prepare to take a pretty big leap with me for this third and final framework, the structural one. Because in this view, digging isn't a human activity at all. It's described as a kind of cosmic pressure, a fundamental force acting on the very fabric of reality itself, an attempt to alter the course of time and causality.
I know, that sounds incredibly abstract, but look at how well it explains the strange mechanics of the story. That periodic halt? That's the system, the universe, resetting itself, restoring its own stability. And that sudden final transformation? That's a phase shift. It's when the entire system hits a critical threshold and fundamentally changes its state. The digging becomes the engine that's driving this whole cosmic drama.
Okay, so now we have three very different lenses to look through: the literal, the civilizational, and this big cosmic structural one. So the natural question is, which one is it? Which interpretation is the right one?
Well, if you look at this comparison, you can see a really clear pattern as we move up from the simple literal interpretation to the abstract structural one. Our ability to explain the weirdest parts of the story, like the disappearing work, gets stronger and stronger. The structural view, even though it's the most out there, is the one that offers the most complete and comprehensive picture.
But here's the real mind-bender. The source material argues that we don't actually have to choose one. These aren't competing interpretations. They are coexisting layers of meaning. The story is operating on all three levels at the exact same time. It's a literal tale, it's a metaphor for human history, and it's a model of a fundamental cosmic process.
And that brings us to the ultimate conclusion of this whole analysis. In this grand structural framework, the diggers are symbolic of the relentless, unstoppable march of scientific progress through history. The one who builds the barrier, Dhul Qarnayn, represents time itself. And breaking that barrier? That means breaking our linear perception of time, shattering the chain of cause and effect, literally breaking causality as we know it.
Now, that is a massive idea. It takes an ancient story and reframes it as a profound philosophical model of science, reality, and time. And the source leaves us right here, with this one final provocative question. Does an interpretation this bold actually withstand analysis? It's a thought that challenges us to reconsider everything, not just the nature of progress, but the role of consciousness itself in defining our universe.